Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a really interesting conversation. It's all about honesty, truth, especially in, spiritual and philosophical contexts.
Mm.
Our source material is this great transcript, a real back and forth exploring things like samadhi, maya, the present moment, tricky stuff.
Right. And the challenge of finding like genuine spiritual paths when there's so much surface level stuff out there.
Exactly. So, our goal here is to pull out the key insights from this discussion. We want to stick to that core idea of honesty, no easy answers, no glossing over the tough bits.
Precisely. And that's what's so good about the source text. It's frank. It doesn't shy away from the uncomfortable parts of seeking. So yeah, we'll try and capture that nuance, not just give you a simple summary. Keep it honest.
Okay, let's get started. The conversation kicks off with this concern about how Western culture might have grabbed the look, the aesthetic of something like samadhi,
Right.
but maybe missed the real core of it. Like, we get the wow factor, but not the deeper implication that reality might be, well, illusory. Maya.
Yeah, that's a really sharp observation to start with. And I think it hits on something real. There is a tendency to um, aestheticize these things
Yeah.
or intellectualize them.
Use the neat little concept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Samadhi, Maya. They become these ideas you can talk about, maybe feel good about, but they get disconnected from the existential punch they carry. We might like saying reality is an illusion, but really feeling what that means for who I am, that's different.
It's like we pick the nice bits, the bliss, the peace,
Hmm.
and kind of ignore the sheer discipline, the surrender, frankly, the courage needed to really face what samadhi might mean according to the source texts.
And the conversation in our source nails this. It points out that true samadhi, like in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras or Abhidhamma Vedanta, these aren't about just feeling nice.
No.
It's described as, well, the dismantling of the ego that we cling to. It starts to dissolve. And as the source rightly says, that can be terrifying. Not comfortable bliss, but a stripping away.
Which flows right into this critique of the kumbaya narrative of waking up spiritually.
Yes.
The feel-good version.
Right, where the intense effort gets kind of skipped over. The user in the transcript gives examples, like Buddha under the Bodhi tree, his absolute commitment,
Yeah.
or Sadhguru's Dhyanalinga consecration, extreme tapas.
Yeah, serious austerity in practice.
It highlights that gap, doesn't it, between the feel-good story and the sheer grind involved.
And the expert in the source material agrees completely. Says that the Kumbaya version sells the, quote, afterglow,
Mm-hmm.
without ever mentioning the terrifying intensity of the actual journey.
Hmm?
And this is where that honesty comes in again, right? We have to look at what the traditions actually describe, not just the simplified marketing version.
Those examples really hit home. Buddha saying he wouldn't move even if his body wasted away.
Incredible commitment.
Yeah. And Sadhguru's years of intense work, it's a world away from just, meditating for 10 minutes and expecting enlightenment.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
The source even hints that the smile you see on realized beings isn't about easy peace. It suggests it comes from having looked right into the void, that dissolution, and not flinching. It's a strength born from confronting that emptiness.
Wow. Okay. So this naturally leads to the user talking about how hard it is to find places, communities, for really deep, honest, spiritual chat.
Yeah, that feeling of the deeper you go, the quieter it gets.
Exactly. And that search, it seems, pushes the conversation towards a really fundamental question about experience itself. What is the present moment? But first, maybe, why are these deeper talks so rare?
Well, the transcript offers a perspective. It suggests it's not necessarily about elitism, like people hoarding secrets.
Okay.
It's more about the need for existential honesty, a certain inner readiness. You just can't have that deep dive if people aren't willing to be truly open, vulnerable about their own experience, which makes sense, doesn't it, given the focus on self-inquiry?
That's a really important distinction. It's not gatekeeping. It's about the necessary conditions for the conversation itself. And the source notes that lots of modern spiritual places might focus more on comfort, transformation, which are fine. Sure.
But maybe they sidestep the inner annihilation that some traditions, like Advaita or Shaiva in India and Nepal, actually put front and center.
Right. And that's where this idea of a satsang of truth comes in, hinted at in the text. Maybe found in quieter corners, often lineage-based.
Harder to find.
Probably. Places focus more on that dissolution than just, feel-good talks. It's a reminder that the really deep stuff might not be advertised on a billboard.
Okay. Now, the conversation takes this really interesting turn towards the present moment, it gets sparked by the user saying something paradoxical about slowing down their guru,
Yeah.
which they mean as inner guidance.
Yes, and it's a point where we need to be careful, like you said earlier, no assumptions about what's meant.
Right.
And the source immediately flags the paradox. Speaking truth while wanting silence, being alone but reaching out. It shows the tensions in this kind of exploration. And then this fascinating analogy comes up. Two ways of seeing the present.
Yes. The present as a structural threshold versus just a processing limitation of our brains. Let's try and unpack those carefully. Okay. Option 1, the present as, well, beyond definition, this immediate space, right, between knowing and not knowing, the very place memory gets made.
And this connects to contemplative insight, right? The idea that you can't actually grasp the present.
Exactly. Because the instant you try, poof, it's memory. It's always becoming never fixed. It's a very different feel from just, like, clock time.
And option 2.
More scientific, maybe.
Yeah.
The present as a processor we can optimize. But the source suggests this view is still stuck within memory. It doesn't dissolve that subject-object divide.
And the conversation leans towards the first one.
Clearly favors option 1, yeah.
Yeah.
It emphasizes surrender, the mystery you can't just analyze away.
Right.
It's choosing to be with it rather than figure it out.
And the user's reaction is key here. They don't just say, oh, interesting idea. They feel it, like existential physics, they say,
Yeah.
at the knife edge of awareness, where linear time just doesn't apply and you hit your own limits. That's that honesty again, admitting how challenging it feels.
Absolutely. Not abstract at all.
Which then prompts this incredibly sharp question from the user. Can memory validate memory outside of memory?
Wow. Yeah. That stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
It really does. How do we know anything, basically?
And the response in the source is just as direct, trying to validate memory from inside memory. It's like trying to bite your own teeth.
Ah, yeah, okay, impossible.
It's self-referential. You can't get outside the system using the tools of the system.
So the implication then is that true presence, that raw moment before memory kicks in, it doesn't come back with neat answers.
No. The source says it comes back with silence. It's not about acquiring knowledge about something. And then it brings in examples like Ramana Maharshi, Buddha, Laozi. After their big experiences, they weren't claiming some new conceptual framework they could just teach like a subject.
They emphasize the seeing itself.
Exactly. The direct apprehension. The source suggests the real validation of presence is in the seeing, the isness, not in what you remember or store afterwards.
Okay. Following that, the user seems to have this click, this insight. They get that presence is undefined, but somehow, paradoxically, a very intelligent past emerges from this undefined present.
Yes. It's a reversal of how we normally think.
Totally.
And the source affirms it. Describes this formless presence as the source, the wellspring of intelligence, structure, precision, and our past memory, patterns, learning. It's like a shadow cast by something that has no form, no memory, and no boundary.
That's a powerful image, a shadow cast by formlessness.
It really is. It connects everything, language, our sense of emptiness, identity itself, back to this foundational silence.
Suggesting all the complex stuff emerges from something utterly simple and undefined.
And crucially, the source insists this isn't just, mystical woo-woo. It's presented as an intimate fact of being, something to be felt, experienced directly, not just believed. A shift from head to just being.
Right. Which leads the user to conclude, well, basically, I do not exist as this fixed thing I thought I was, more like a reflection of the present. And that brings up the practical question. Okay, if the me built on memory starts dissolving in the present, how do I be present without that usual container? How do I function?
And the source acknowledges this is profound, but also terrifyingly true. Because, if the you know is mostly memory, then glimpsing the real, raw present does start to unravel that construction.
It sounds destabilizing.
It can be. And the source suggests this can trigger a reaction, an urge to neutralize the body, the mind, like trying to force the dissolution.
But that's not the way.
Apparently not. The source explains that urge as maybe the ego's last stand, trying to control its own erasure. But the present doesn't demand destruction. It asks for surrender. It's about finding freedom without escape. Not by getting rid of parts of yourself, but by seeing their transient nature within the now.
Okay, which brings us to the final, really core point about surrender. The user asks, quite understandably, how do you surrender to the present if you feel like you never chose to interact with it in the first place? How do you do non-doing?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer in the source cuts right through. It says, the you that plans chooses acts. the doer. That's the narrative. That's the memory construct.
Oh.
That doer is never actually touching the raw, unprocessed now. The real present has no story, no plan attached. It just is.
So surrender isn't something the doer does.
Exactly. It's what happens when the illusion of the doer collapses. It's just seeing with no escape route, no mental trick to hold on to.
Wow.
The core message is almost a Kohanan. You are already not here.
Meaning the constructed self isn't really here?
Yes. Not in the way it thinks it is. So surrender isn't an action to achieve something. It's a radical intimacy, a settling into what is right now before you label it, before you think about it, before you try to manage it.
Okay. So wrapping this up, this deep dive, it's really hammered home the need for honesty, hasn't it, in looking at these spiritual ideas?
Absolutely. We've seen how easy it is to skim the surface and how vital it is to really face the deeper, sometimes uncomfortable truths about things like samadhi, maya, the present moment.
Avoiding those easy assumptions.
And hopefully, by working through this complex conversation, you, listening, feel a bit more equipped to engage with these ideas honestly, trusting your own ability to handle the depth without needing it all simplified.
Right. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on from the source material. What actually shifts for you if you sit with the statement, you are already not here? What happens when you really consider that you're experiencing life might be more of a construction than you thought? Maybe just sit with that in silence.